Good evening. I'm Ritika Kochar, and my moniker is Delhi Ki Diva. But today I'm taking you on a tour of another city, Mumbai. And this is this amazing art photography exhibition which this collector called Saloni Doshi has put together at the space that she runs in Colaba, which is called Space 118. And I'm going to try to get her to join. Hi Anjali, how you doing? Long time no see. Let me see if I can join with Saloni. Who we are, why we're doing this. So my name, as I said, is Ritika Kochar. I'm an art writer, I'm an author, and I've been doing this for the past 10 years. And the reason I've come to this is because there are these connections between art, culture, history, myth, environment, gender, economics, all of which seem to be, we don't realize this. And the more you read, the more you find these connections. For example, today I was reading a book about the Medicis and the Mughals and how much they have in common. And, my mind was blown by reading that. So over the years, I've had the privilege of writing for publications like The Hindu, Business Standard, Open, India Today. I've also written books on, magic realism, which is called Weapons of Kalki. I've written Ghosts of Landor. Again, sustainability and feminism come together. And Wild Thing, which is a romance, which is now soon going to move on into another book. But what is ArtRadio? So ArtRadio is, it's an immersive experience, as you can see, which is why we get to talk to the person who's put together a photography exhibition. Saloni, if you just, as you said earlier, we tried earlier, you're going to just try to join, but I'll send you another invitation. But otherwise, just send me a message saying that you're ready to join whenever you are. Okay, so what is ArtRadio? As I said, think about something which gives you a lot of peace, which gives you a lot of happiness, and yet lets you think and lets you feel. So creativity and the vibrant stories behind these masterpieces. So we show you these masterpieces to allow you to think, to feel, to imagine, to create. All of which are extremely important, especially in today's time where you're asked not to do any of these things in our day jobs. So ArtRadio is an auditory gallery. It's a journey through the world of art. In this, we are going to be exploring stories behind artworks and art books, of course, but we're also going to chat with artists, as we have done, collectors, gallerists, writers, and others in the art world, all of which is extremely necessary and important. Saloni, will you just try to see if you can ask to join? That might be the perfect. Now just if you send that request to join. Yes. Sorry, it wasn't showing up earlier. I hadn't realized it till I opened it. Let's see if that works now. Yes, there you are. The gorgeous Saloni Doshi. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, let me see if I can get myself one little hidden cubby hole. Okay, Saloni, it's fantastic having you here, and we've been trying to do this for a couple of weeks because this is really important. The show of yours is absolutely fabulous. So I want to first start by talking a little bit about you. You're a double MA, right? From after which you decided to go to LSC, after which you decided to write for the Times of India. You worked at Ocean. You started Space 18, which is both a flat. Is it a philanthropic space or it is a residence? I'm not very sure about that at this point. But you are doing a lot of philanthropy as well.
Well, I wasn't sure what philanthropy meant, till I started Space 118. I didn't know it like 5 years ago when we had to shut. It was literally my parents' philanthropy to give me space in South Bombay, almost 20,000 square feet, to give it to artists and from all over India and across the world, completely of course. So we had about 450 artists who came and worked in this space, and we had to shut the residency, unfortunately, because of the pandemic. So
Sorry, please continue.
we had to shut it because of the pandemic, and I decided that I wanted to be a patron. I still wanted to support the arts and the artists. In fact, it was an even more trying time during the pandemic because that's the time when they needed the support more than anything else.
Sorry,
So
please continue.
I decided had to shut it because of the pandemic, and I decided that I have to. Then we had already started giving financial grants way before the pandemic, and along with the residency. And then I decided that I want to take this up full time. I wanted to I wanted to extend the grant to the artists, and we had to shut the residency space, and we continued with the grant.
My God,
So
that's a
now
lot.
financial grant making organization. I think it's a very young age to call myself. I don't know, these terms, philanthropist and patron, are very heavy terms. Even collector, for that matter. This is the, this is something I was doing from such a young age that it was like buying clothes for me. So, when today these terms have been slapped on me pretty much, and I have to accept them, whether I like it or it's not something you set out to do, right? When you're in your 20s, you don't set out to say that, oh, I want to be a collector, oh, I'm going to be a patron of the arts, or oh, I'm going to be a philanthropist, it wasn't done with that intention. But while these activities today are, known because of that, I'm happy to accept it. But it's been a very different journey.
But when I look at you, I start thinking about the fact that the people who formed this country, when they first got into politics, when they first got into the various things that they're doing, they all started young, right?
Yeah.
So it's everyone's journey is their own. You can't really compare one person's journey to the next and say, all right, this is the way it has to be.
Correct.
But because you've done this amazing amount of work, and you said 400 people, and you writing, the residencies, the grants, the all of this. So I'm going to have to, at this stage, call you a patron of writers and artists. And how do you see yourself framing Indian art in the 21st century? And I'm going to come back to why I'm asking this question later, but I mean, it's an important question for me.
So when you say Indian art, you mean as someone who's a maker of the art or someone who's a change maker?
As I said, I spend the day-to-day reading about Medici and the Mughals, all patrons.
Right. Yeah.
And both of them, because, again, like, I'm not going to say like you, I mean, those were in a different bracket than you, but, because they're trying to make a space for themselves, they started patronizing writers, artists, etc. I mean, each of them. I mean, Lorenzo was a writer himself, so he focused on writers. Akbar learned drawing at an early age and didn't write, so he focused on artists. But each person framed their world, their century in themselves because of what they, what was a skill they already owned.
Right. So I look at it very broadly. I think at the time I entered the art world, I was very young and art was not an asset class. There weren't so many auction houses, galleries, and the art ecosystem was very small. I'm talking about 20 years ago. Today, there are all kinds of people, and the art world has grown. I feel, having been exposed to so much international art from a very young age, while I haven't bought it, I've been exposed to it, and I feel that what should happen is that more, of course, Indian art should be shown internationally. I think international art should be shown in India, which what NMACC is doing. I think there is a whole movement towards collections opening up to the public. Whether I heard, efforts like Serendipity, and then I think Sunil Munjal is opening his own museum, with Kiran opening her own museum now, and many other, hopefully, collections
Sarmaya.
coming out in the foray. I
Yeah.
think it's admirable, and it would be more admirable when younger generations of collectors, um, who can be change makers by actually, I mean, the older generation of collectors who actually have fantastic collections in this country, open them up to the public. Because many a times, I mean, this is something which is very done and dusted internationally, whether people take up spaces like a old home, or some palace, or even a museum space, and showcase their collections, or
Right.
even just open up their homes. In India, it's a very sacred space, and it's a very close thing. I mean, you have to be really someone, I mean, to get an invitation to someone's home. So I feel like when you open up your collection, you actually introduce younger patrons, younger collectors, or even non-collectors, or just generally, a whole generation of young enthusiasts, art enthusiasts, into ways of seeing art. And I was privileged at a very young age. My mother exposed me to classical forms of art, which is Bharatanatyam, Hindustani vocal. And we were taken to museums from a very young age, because my mother is from Calcutta. So the Indian Museum, the Malik Palace, and going to galleries like Chitrakoot and several others were, part of our Sundays. And while I had that exposure, and Calcutta in itself being such a historical city, while I had that exposure at a young age, and then being exposed to several collections, whether they're miniature or sculptures or textile or modern and contemporary, um, that sort of shapes you, and it gives you sort of a direction, and it also sort of validates your instinct to buy, that, oh, if she could buy this, so can I. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
many a times when you see modern art collections, you can't afford them, but when you see a contemporary art collection and you respect that collector, you may think of buying that medium, which is why I've started, so that's, I think being a change maker amongst those who can shape the Indian art world, whether it's putting it out internationally or putting it out domestically for consumption and understanding and education, and creating platforms of discourse. I think that to me is where the direction in which we should be going in. We already have a fantastic repertoire of artists, whether it's miniature, whether it's moderns and contemporary. And since we give out a grant, we see so many applications, over 400 applications we receive, and it's so sad that such few people can make it to the grant level. So we already have the talent, whether even in textile, which has now become a thing to do internationally, textile based art, which was always considered as a form of craft and not as a form of art. So
Right.
I think India and Indian artists traveling internationally, and Indian collectors showing their collections, is something that would would be would be raising the bar, you know.
So, this collection that you've put out, from your collection, the photography exhibition that you've put out, um, it's called The Right to Look, and the works from Saloni Doshi collection. And the first words in the foreword were extremely evocative. So, it starts with, I see you, do you see me? And then it goes on to say that it continuously tries to escape, for we have shot it, captured it. It obfuscates perception, taunting us by asking, is your reality more beautiful now that you've photographed it? It thrives on frustration, mocking our despair for constantly seeking the right moment, and yet it is always there for us. Look closer, this aura is of choice. It is that moment in time when we decide to frame an event for a future that lasts forever. Why did you decide on collecting photography?
Okay, so the two things. One is about the context of what you just said, because, and the second thing is collecting photography. I'm a trained photographer. I didn't realize that till all the journalists have chased me before the show and actually made me, you know, dig out the skeletons from my past. I don't know if they're skeletons, but it's literally like I didn't know that I bought this medium in to this extent till Amit actually said, Saloni, we can't show everything in part one. We will have to have a part two. So there are two parts to this show. This is more figurative and performative photography, and part two, which opens on Jan 10th, is abstract and landscape photography. Um, why I collected photography? I was trained as a, I mean, I can't say photojournalist, but I was trained as a photographer under Jaru Mullah. And not only were we exposed to some of the best photography that, took place in the world, even in the history of photography, whether it is Henri Cartier-Bresson, Man Ray, Eugene Auger, so many, even films, Wong Kar-wai, Satyajit Ray, Money Call. We used to watch every Thursday. A film was called from the Film Institute, and we had to watch it. So Rashomon, I remember. So we were taught how to look at a photograph as a form of work, because what is included is not everything. It's also about what was excluded from the photograph and why it was deliberately excluded. So Jaru taught us how to look at photographs. We were taught, how to shoot on a still camera. The digital SLRs came way after. So when you've done that and you've gone through that process, for me, what one captures, from their eye, and is more raw and more easy to understand than what has been thought through and painted over months or days, because this is something so spontaneous. When it comes to your question about, collecting a period or collecting a part of history, with Pushpamala's work, which was arrival of Vasco da Gama in India, or Jyoti Bhatt's work, which was capturing a period of time in the 1970s, mostly 60s, 70s, and 80s, but how women dress, what did they do, what was their daily life about. And then to juxtapose that with Madiha Ejaz's work, which was Muharram in Pakistan, or Saurabh Gura's work, which is about, a child looking at her mother looking into the river and her father sleeping. I'm assuming that's what it is, because it says life is elsewhere. That's the title of the work. So I think capturing those moments, when I see these photographs, I can see myself many a times in these performances or in these scenes. And I love these moments of history that I capture. But having said that, I had no idea that I'd even bought a lot of abstraction. And for me, I think while I bought it back in the past, I mean, at least most of this has been collected over 10 to 15 years. I don't know. I think I'm just in love with the medium, I think because I understand it. And I think I love the sensitivity of the medium.
So you've got some of these artists who today we've heard of. Nikhil Chopra is obviously, these artists who are more familiar to us. And yet, I think there's a whole lot of Jyoti Bhatt in this collection, the one that you've shown. So why, with all these choices in front of you, did you focus so much on one artist? And that
No,
also...
not at all. There's a massive Pushpamala. There are 3 works of hers. There are, I think, 4 works of Madhu Das. There are 10 works of Nikhil I have bought, but I think Amit has shown only about 4, 5 of them. And yes, he's shown 10 Jyoti Bhatts, but the collection is way more. I bought about 35, 40 works of his, So I think the show has been heavily edited. And a lot of it, I've bought many other art photographers extensively, or even the ones that have been shown, many of them have been bought extensively, but everything is not up for display because of constraints of space. And I think it's not only about what has been included, it's also about what we have left out.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so I think
And what's coming
that's
in the
where,
next lot?
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't let you complete that. Go on.
So I said it's not about what has been included, it's also about what has been left out, you know.
Huh.
And there's a book coming out on the collection. And I mean, this is of part of the photography part of the collection, whatever shows we're having. And in the book, everything will be included. But the idea was just to, you know, showcase a bit of everything that I have and have collected. It was not about, you know, the Jyoti Bats were small. They're in the smallest room in the show and on the smallest wall of that room. So
Okay.
it's been put tightly, but it's not everything, and it's not like to give that focus. I think it's a nice range of women from Orissa, Saurashtra, Kutch, Gujarat, rest of Gujarat, and Rajasthan. So I think in that sense, he put out works which sort of cover everything that I may have bought.
Yeah, because that Tejal Shah is just so eye-catching. I mean, Nikhil Chopra is definitely, no doubt about it, this lovely one. I've forgotten the name of the artist who's done this, the Creation of Man Kathakali version, which is just brilliant. But that
Vivek
Tejal
Vilas.
Shah, so, there's so much in this collection which is just amazing. I mean, to go from one to the next. So, just a question, because you mentioned this in, the first time we met, you mentioned somebody who you consider your aunt, and more and more I've been seeing her name crop up. So how important do you think are your mentors to your collecting versus your own eye?
Mentors, I mean, I call them mentors because I don't think many a times people, like I mentioned Jaru, I think people forget people who've been part of your journey. Like it's very easy to forget your school teacher. You know, it's very easy to forget your college teacher. It's very easy to forget people who've taught you to look at a museum, or who've taken you to the museum for the first time, or introduce you to galleries, or introduce you to artists. For me, I think I'm very grateful that I had all these people in my life. And while I would say Jaru shaped, the way I look at photography and how trained I am, the mentors, I call them mentors because they're not exactly mentors. They're more like, they themselves are institution in themselves. They are, some of the finest collectors in the country who have also bought as passionately who have bought art as passionately as I have. When you have access, when you don't come from a family that has been buying art, but is exposed to art. I was also exposed to a lot of theater. I think that's where dramatic arts also holds a huge space in my heart, because whether it's Gujarati theater or English or Marathi or Hindi, I used to go to Prithvi, and I'm a life member of NCPA, and I watch every play that I possibly can to the last few years when we've just gotten busy with work. But I still go and catch plays and important theater and music. So I feel mentors sort of many a times introduce you to ways of looking at things. Many a times it is about things that happened in the past, things that are happening in the future. I mean, art that has just been introduced. So like for me, whenever I travel, and if Lekha is around in the same city, she will always take me to a biennale or an art show, or we would have a day full of some art event that we would be going to. And I remember once we went to a show in Abu Dhabi, and she had already seen it. She was taking me for the second time. I mean, she was going second time. And I said, but why were you going? I can do this on my own. And she said, no, I need to see all the videos again. You know what I mean? So
Sweet.
to look at new forms of art, something that you take for granted, just because you don't collect it, it doesn't mean you don't appreciate it. And I remember she would read out all the wall text. And and she'd be like, have you read this? And I'd be like, no. And then she would actually read it out. I remember the title of the show was Crude, and it was in Abu Dhabi, and curated by, I think, I'm forgetting the name of the curator, but it was a fantastic show on oil and oil-based politics and oil-based art. So I feel like mentors give you a direction, whether it's taking you into the past of the art world, because I'm relatively new, and or future, where the future is going. So it depends on who you call a mentor. It also depends on how exposed. These are people who I wouldn't say mentors, but I would call them more like people who have shaped my ways of looking. Whether it's my mother, whether it is my teachers, or whether it is these people who have um, who've been a guiding force.
And because you said you went to all these shows, do you normally collect a lot more Indian artists, or do you collect foreign artists as well?
So my collection is predominantly Indian, but I would say that, I have bought from the subcontinent. Over the last few years, I've been buying heavily from South Asia. And I don't actually look at art in terms of medium. It's unfortunate that we had to divide the shows like that, because this is for public consumption and not just my own. But I don't look at art in terms of medium or continent or country. When I bought Zarina, I don't know what she was. She's of Indian origin. She was born in Pakistan. When I bought Adila Suleiman, it was a nightmare, because I was so scared whether we would be able to import it into the country. I recently bought Maha Ahmed's works. She's a Pakistani artist based in London, I think Kuwait, but I bought it from London. And I have been. I actually, now that you'd ask me, I don't look at art from which I bought Karan Shrestha's work, who is from Nepal, Shumon Ahmed, who's from Bangladesh. But I don't look at it like that. I look at themes that appeal to me. I look at it in terms of its appeal to me and what suits my collection. But I haven't gone. I have to say, I haven't gone beyond South Asia. I try. I'm still so fascinated by the artists and what they are making in India and in the region, that I haven't gone beyond that. So it is predominantly South Asia.
So you said you don't look at mediums. So what mediums are you collecting?
Everything. Oil on canvas, acrylic on canvas, a lot of paper-based works, etchings, uh, photographs, sculptures. There's so much mixed media in my collection. The next show next year is going to be more textile-based art and sculptures. So there's a lot. It's, for me, a medium is just a way to communicate a message. I have never given so much importance to the medium. It's like I said, these shows have been categorized like that because this is for public consumption and not just me. But I have never looked at it as photography. For me, I've looked at it as what is it capturing, whether that can be captured in a photograph or a sculpture or painting. Everything is the same for me. I don't differentiate. I've bought marble, I've bought wood, I've bought metal, I've bought acrylic. They're just all kinds of mediums.
So now, if you could, so my next two questions are kind of they come into this. So one is, if somebody comes to you saying we've got 35,000, what would you recommend they buy? Considering most people have absolutely no knowledge, and you are a young collector, so what would you recommend people would buy if they have the first 35,000 ready to spend on art?
I had lesser than that when I started buying art. So 35,000 is a lot. Because I was buying from my first salary, and it was a lot less. I feel before buying, if you have to give, if you really have to buy immediately, I would say go to a few good galleries that are supporting young artists, and look at their programs, look at the artists that you relate to, speak to the gallerists, get on a payment plan, maybe increase your budget a little bit. Ask them if you can make a payment plan and then acquire work. I'm sure they're all open to it. Today people are open to so many things. And um, and then acquire something that you genuinely love. You know, if you can wait it out, collect many 35,000s, and you know, travel to India Art Fair, go to, you know, Kochi Biennale, go to see Serendipity, it's just opened or opening, and you know, go to these places where there is all kinds of art put up, you know, democratically. And I didn't have these choices. There was no India Art Fair, there was no Kochi, there was no you know, Serendipity, there was nothing. So I had to travel, and you know, travel as much as you can see. I mean, as much as you can, as much as you can, and then extend your budget into what you really like. You know, because you have to like it. You know, for me, I have to love it. You know, someone once asked me this question: have you ever made a mistake? And my answer has always been no. I don't know what a mistake means, because I have very clear rules. My initiation into art was because of the moderns, because I worked as an intern for a short period at Oceans, where I was documenting all the art and cataloging it. And because of that, that was all modern art. And when I actually started buying it, I realized very quickly that this is not what I want to buy. This is what I know, and this is what I enjoy. So, do I actually have to buy everything I know of? Which was undoing what I knew, and you know, learning new things. And I again set out, traveled extensively across the country, went to many galleries, and started seeing art in a different way. And then I started buying photography, sculpture. I mean, I have a few video works too, but it's not, like I said, I don't look at it like that. I don't look at it for its medium. Um, Actually, up until the show, I didn't even know I had bought over 200 photographic works. So, um, but what I'm saying is that for me, it was very clear. It was what my pocket could afford. Firstly, what I loved. B, what I thought I would never get bored of. And C, what my pocket could afford. If it could not afford it, no matter how much I loved it, I couldn't buy it. I wouldn't buy it. And while the rules don't apply now, but they definitely applied then. And so many of the works in this show, I think only 5% of this show has been hung in my house. Most of it is coming out of storage after almost 10 to 15 years. And I don't see any mistakes. I love each and every one of them. And I'm enjoying it thoroughly more than any. I mean, I don't know how much others who come and see it enjoy it, but I'm surely enjoying it.
What you said, from where I'm standing, which is that I've looked at art all my life. Again, like you, mom's an artist, being exposed to art all my life. I've written on art for the past 10 years. I've talked to artists. I've looked at galleries. And now I can't imagine what I'd want to buy because I've got this problem of plenty. You know, I don't know in which direction to turn. So I wouldn't know where to start my collection from. So what would you do with someone like me?
Well, what would you do with someone like me who doesn't know on a daily basis where to spend their money? Because such good art is offered so many times, and you don't even know whether you can buy it or not. And even if you buy it, it straight goes into storage, and it has been going for so many years, you know. Well, I have to say that I feel, I mean, you have to limit your choices. You have to know what your budget is. And I used to make a list. And see, in my case, it's a little different because I ran an artist studio and residency space. I was very exposed to artists firsthand. I saw 450 artists make art in my space on a daily basis. They used to live there. So for me, having that access and understanding their joys, their challenges, their tribulations was a very different learning. Also, having access to collections in India and abroad from a very young age, um, you know, my eye is trained. So while I do know that, and I bought art very young. I mean, when I bought Nikhil Chopra or Vaimita Singh or Raghu Rai or any of the artists, Vivan Sundaram or Madhu or Vivek, they weren't these names. please see the year in which they've been made, and I've pretty much bought everything within the next 3 to 5 years. Um,
Right.
so I have bought, and I mean, I I don't believe in okay, so now this has become a name, so now I should put it up in my house, or this is, then I should buy it. I believe in buying and discovering artists and buying them before they're a name. They've become big. So for me, the journey is very different, and I mean, some people would call that taking a risk. For me, it's a challenge. And for me, it's the most enjoyable part of the journey is to find someone before, they've reached their peak. Um, so, yeah. So I would say, see your budget and see, make a list of what you like and see what is the best thing that you, I mean, see. And another thing, another way of collecting is that I don't buy names. So I will chase a particular work of an artist. I mean, I may have missed a cycle, I mean, that show, and I may have not bought from that show. But if I want to buy the artist, I will ensure that every gallerist or dealer knows that I only want that series of that artist. I think anyone who knows me knows that I don't buy names. I buy works of those artists. So for me, it's very important that if I'm looking at the Phantom Bali series of Pushpamala, or if I'm looking at a particular series of another artist, I only want that series. It doesn't mean that they produced a new show, even if it's cheaper, or price or anything doesn't matter. Even if it's a work that will go into an important museum, doesn't matter. If I want a work, I only want that work, and I only want that work of that artist. So many a times for me, I have a wish list. I know the series in photography, I can do that because they're editioned, but still, so many works that I've bought, the editions are sold out. Most of the works in this show, there is no edition. People have been asking me, and I've put them onto the galleries, but they don't have editions of works. Of what I bought back in the day. So I don't chase names. I would say I chase the works I want of theirs. In case of photography series, in case of non-photographic works, like a particular series of their work, a particular period of work that they made that appeals to me.
Okay, so can you name a couple of artists who you, at this point, you think people should be looking out for?
In photography or in general?
Can I leave that to you? Because you're the one going to all the shows right now, right? So we're
Uh,
telling you.
like I said, there's so much. I mean, if you were to talk about, I mean, younger artists who I would rather take names of artists who are not known and
Right.
artists who deserve to be known. Um, I would say, Varunika Saraf, who's behind me. I would say Sheena Bajaria. I would say Soumya Sankar Bose. I don't have his work, but I love his practice. I would say Sunil Sippi. Akshay Mahajan, who's a fantastic photographer in my show. Um, I would say Ramin Chopra. She used to make fantastic works. She is showing last, and has been showing for several years now. Um, there are many. There are many. There are many young and undiscovered artists. Jaita Chatterjee, who's been making textile-based works. Shomen Mondol. I think he's India's Onsom Kiefer, who's yet to be discovered. So there are many. Like I said, because I run a grant and I was running a residency, for me to see young talent and to know that they're so raw and fresh and they have no idea, you know, who are their comparables in the international art world or even in the Indian art world, or where do they stand. And sometimes I'm literally talking to them, and making them realize where their practice can go. And for me, that's a real joy. I really enjoy running this grant, and when I ran the residency, more than even being a collector. And even we have a fundraiser show, and I'm actually the biggest collector of my fundraiser show. I buy all of them because I love all their works. And recently I've gotten into a lot of miniature based works. So I'm heavily into miniatures, and having understood it and or understand it, and I'm still a student. I'll always remain a student, but um, I've been reading a lot, and I have been buying a lot of miniature based art. So yeah, I think the joy of discovering is a completely different joy, and it's not about buying brands. It's about making them brands. So I think for me that's the fun, and that's the challenge.
Yeah, because you mentioned Sarah, and Sarah behind you, she's done a PhD under Kavita Singh, and I've never heard Kavita Singh raving about a student like she raved about Sarah's work, because the work she did in her PhD was just phenomenal. So, I mean, a PhD in art history. And that shows up. When you see an artist
Yeah.
who's, really thought it through, it really shows up in their work. So I think completely understand. I thought that was Ghulam Mohammed Sheikh's work behind you, actually, but when you said Saraf, I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. And I mean, your educational background, where you come from, what is your socioeconomic condition, where were you born, and where do you live? How do you see the world? What are your political views? Many of these things shape the person you are and the art you make. The medium is just a way to communicate the message. What is I always ask artists, what is the message you want to communicate? What is it that what is it that you want to tell the world? Because art is about communication. It's about the times you live in. It is about what you see around you. It is what you feel. They are sponges. Artists are sponges who soak all this in and put it in such a beautiful way, which they want to, which fortunately, unfortunately, people like us consume. But actually, it's something which is a part of their ecosystem. you know I remember, and another thing I have to say is that I remember once, I recently mentioned this, so I remember this, but I bought a work of Sonia Jones. She's this fantastic artist where her face, it's her face, it's a self-portrait, and there are clips all over her face. Okay?
Okay.
And it's a very painful work. And it's probably her, going through this time. It's not an easy work to handle. Um, at the same time, I bought Shambhavi Singh's work, which was agricultural sickles, what you use to, in agriculture,
Yeah.
in gardening also a sickle. So sickles are
Yes.
mostly used in agriculture, not even in gardening. So these are just sickles, lying, all over. And I bought that work, and I had placed it next to this, work with these clips all over her face, both extremely, not in not in a in the perfect sense, beautiful works. For someone who would enter my office, they were very painful works. Most people were like, I don't even want to look left, I can't see this. And for me, they brought me so much joy. I cannot even tell you, because for me, I look at art just the way I look at life. So anything that's lifelike is art like. So it was about seeing these and feeling it. And if that's what I'm going through, the work comes alive to me. Actually, her pain was a lot more than mine then, and it sort of subdues my pain. So I don't know, but for me, I feel like art, all my artworks are like my children. I don't have real life children, but these are inanimate objects which give me so much joy and happiness. And they also convey my life. And when Amit has curated this show in such a beautiful way, where one room is on gaze, one is on identity, one is on anxiety, one is on the reality of life, and one room is performance. It sort of made me realize, even the room on anxiety, there are people who can enter it and absolutely love it, and it's their favorite room, and there's some people who can't feel it. They just don't understand it. So that's fine, each to their own. But I have bought art like that, And it's so amazing that I found someone who could articulate it in the same way that it's been bought. Yeah. So it's for me, there are animate objects. They're not inanimate. They speak to me.
Yeah. I was at the coach show in Delhi today, and in the room which is devoted to the mother, there's this letter written out there, and it starts with, I remember when Amar Kanwar was in Kathmandu in 2018. He said these lines that I can never seem to forget. We respond to extreme pain with extreme beauty. And I guess we are making some amazing art right now. It says a lot for the world.
But we have such an old history of art making. The first patrons of independent. I mean, we are the third generation, but post Mughal, the Mughal period in India, miniatures was one of the first form of art, and even what predates that is sculptures. So our history is so rich in terms of art, architecture, and art in the form of miniature, in the form of stones and sculptures, terracotta, bronzes from the Chola region and the Pala region, and so we are already so rich with our own history that for me, any form of contemporary art that tries to capture where we come from, or where we are today, or where we could be in the future. I'll tell you an example of where we could be in the future. There was Atul's show, I think 1,000 Museums of the Future. I call it Museums of the Future show. It opened at Bhavdaji Lad, where he's made these museums in beautiful architectural forms, I think about 100 works, okay? And he's called it Museum of Badlapur and Museum of, all the remotest cities of the country, the remotest areas of the country. And some is called museum, some is called convention center, some is called, institution. I mean, he's given it different terms as well. But areas that, like in Mizoram, Manipur, like, so basically his vision of being, of his dream of having a museum, a contemporary art museum in every small town, not only city, but small town of India. And he's actually put it in beautiful watercolors. So that's for me encouraging. For me, that's like where art could go. What does the artist perceive the art, where the art world should go? You know what I mean? Not just being seen in Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, Chennai, and Bangalore. It's also about reaching out to regional, areas within India. And that's a futuristic work. That's about the future, Sonia Jose's work is about, today and her emotions. So different artists communicate different things. There are a lot of artists who work on climate change. There are artists who work on, who draw, draw upon ancient traditions and convey them in a, a contemporary way. Some people make comical works like Sarnath Banerjee, which where everything is a comic book and you relay a narrative story. And some people make beautiful photographs where they're like almost Sugimoto. Like, I have this beautiful photograph by Shumon Ahmed, which is going to be in the next show, and it looks like a Sugimoto seascape for me. So I look at beauty in all these things, like you would look at in your own children. You are not going to discriminate them, that this one knows how to speak well and this one knows how to communicate well. You love all of them the way they are. I love all my works the way they are.
I know. I wouldn't even dare to ask you which is your favorite work. I don't dare.
I don't have favorites. But the one work I know I would never get and I would always want, not because of what she painted, but because of what she stood for. And that's Amrita Shergill. I grew up on Prithviraj Road, so Amrita Shergill Road is right behind my house. And
Right.
growing up, in Delhi, because I grew up in Delhi. And growing up, I was always told the story of Amrita Shergill. I didn't know about her, how important her work was in Indian art history. And of course, when I got into the art world, I got volumes, the 2-volume book of hers, which Vivan brought out. And And I remember that time the retake of Amrita Shergill was also just released. This is actually, I started collecting in 2003 4. The work retake was from 2002. And I'll never forget that, I was just like, how does one own a Amrita Shergill? And someone said clearly to me, you will never be able to own one. And I was like, why? Because most of it is, in with the family or with the NGA Delhi. So I said, okay. So I said, then I'll just buy her photograph. And that's what I did. I went and bought Viva's retake series, and I subsequently collected a few. But what I'm saying is that that's one artist whose life and work always fascinated me. And you have to look at her work for the period in which she made her work, not today. Today it may look, village women sitting around, bright, get ready, or self-portraits, which seems very, a period of the past. But because she was half Dutch and she was Hungarian, sorry, and and she was influenced by the Western world, still her palette, her color tones, what she painted. I mean, even the fact that she did so many self-portraits, and the fact that she married her first cousin, she, you know, um, she made the statement, the world belongs to Picasso, but India belongs to me. To have that kind of confidence at a time and age where nobody bought art, there were no buyers for Indian art. That's the kind of statement she made in those days. And look what a legacy she has left behind, you know. So she's one artist um, who will always be my all-time favorite. Any work of hers. And I remember the first work I ever hung in my new home or any of my homes was always a Shergill, because of her portrait, which is Vivan's retake series of Amrita Shergill. Because no matter how much I bought then, it was never enough. I think it's like I look for her blessings in my life. I love her work so much, and I love her life even more.
Thank you. You helped me end my confusion as well. So thanks for that. Are you still there?
Yeah. What? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said you helped me end my confusion as well. So
Okay.
thank you for that.
Most welcome.
Mrs. One artist.
Yeah.
So thanks so much, Saloni. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Most welcome. Thank you for having me on this.
I don't know if it's going to come through or not, because it's been hung right from the start, but our conversation continued, so fingers crossed the rest of the world will also be able to hear it. So thanks so much. I will say good night now.
Okay, thank you.